welcome back. And if you're new here, get ready to stay. This is the Thrive in Life and Faith podcast, designed to help you do just that. With your hosts Litha and Remo, making space for people to share their thoughts and experiences to help you thrive in life and faith.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Another episode of the podcast. Don't know why I just spelled that out, but here we are. And I'm not flying solo. You can already hear his disappointment and confusion. I am here with the honorable man himself. I'm going to hold myself back and just say the Reverend Dr. Light of the World, teacher of the Word of God, example to all men, he who has been there, come back and is unveiling to us that which was veiled to us. He is the man, the myth, the legend, Litha, Light of the World, Mayataza. What's up, dude?
Wow, that was you holding yourself back.
I've been working on this for a while, but I thought, you know what?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if people enjoy that as much as we do. So
Yeah,
I thought I'll hold it back.
we have some stuff that's just
There was
for
still
us,
more I
but
could add that you have a girlfriend who actually likes you. You know, there's a lot. There's a lot that I could
the
say.
usual
You have
standard. Yeah,
a boss that believes in you. That's important. You know,
yeah, it is important.
so but but for the context of the podcast, we'll just say you're a man who's thriving in life and faith, and so we are grateful to have you on and be jumping into these conversations together. But before we do that, I didn't hear how you said you are. How you doing?
I'm good. It's yeah, long week. Obviously, we've had to do some separate stuff because life is just that long.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
um, but it is good to be back to doing one together. It's important we still do stuff together.
We
So,
do.
I'm okay though. It's just getting used to work and life, and it's just
Nice.
it only gets more tiring apparently. So,
That's what they
um,
say. That's what
it's
they
fun
say.
to look forward to.
I was with someone today who's about 20 years older than me, and he was like, "You think you're tired?" And I was like, "No, don't say that."
Don't do that.
I need to know that at some point. But yeah, I hear you. Before I forget, everybody, Lita's running a marathon to raise funds for the kids.
Oh yeah.
So every step counts. Have a look on his
Mhm.
Instagram at Litha Miataza on Instagram and support the work, man. The man is putting in
Putting on the line for the
some
kiddos,
hard
man.
kilometers, and he's doing it for the kids. He's not even doing it for his own glory. That's how you know, man. Very rarely will a man lay down his own life for himself, but he do it for the kids. This man's doing it for the kids. So I think you should
There you
also
go. We'll put the
uh,
link up. Hopefully, we've inspired you to donate.
Yeah, exactly. No, man, I should invest in my televangelist skills here and be like, if you sow a
Yeah,
seed. But anyways, this is not the context for this conversation. But very exciting. We're starting a new topic. So
we are.
now that I've advertised Lita's running journey, let's dive into a brand new theme for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Obviously, we themes is a thing that we did. The last one we did was Jacob.
Mhm.
Spent a couple of months in those conversations. We're jumping into the New Testament. To give you a bit of variety. If you were sick of the Old Testament, you shouldn't be sick of the Bible though. So I don't know how that.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
feeling that way, no judgment, but hey,
No judgment,
bit of,
but we're
bit
secretly
of prayer
judging you.
there.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Um,
Um,
and we're gonna look at a New Testament, the Sermon on the Mount. And I think it's gonna be like a lot of fun to really dive into. Obviously, greater people of us have done deeper dives into the Sermon on the Mount. So I think Remo and I both read a lot of resources, so we will probably be mentioning a bunch as we go along.
yeah.
But I think it'll be helpful for us to dive into. I think the Sermon on the Mount is a great way to orient your day-to-day life.
Mm,
We think about like it's like Jesus teaching philosophy or ethics. I think that's a lot of how people like approach it, but he's actually trying to instill a way of life in the
yeah.
people who are listening. And so I think that's primarily the lens that I hope Reams and I can focus on.
Mm,
Um, what does the stuff that Jesus say mean for your today? Because that is what he's trying to affect
Yeah.
How can you like live it out in your own life and the people around you? So it should be a lot of fun, man. Um, I'm hoping we can get some guests as we move along, but
Mm.
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
You look like you wanted to say something there.
I was just gonna say, because I think the premium for us, and certainly if you listen to this podcast long enough, you know, we aren't like one day Christians. One day it's gonna
Yeah.
be okay. One day, heaven, my brother, hold on until we get to heaven. But I think both of us are pretty firm believers in the here and now being a massive part of the plan of God. Not that we don't think there is a next step after death,
Mhm.
but certainly we are not negating the impact on the journey that this side of the line works, or the timeline works on. So I think that's what I'm excited about, is because I do think it's beyond
Yeah.
a philosophical, moral, or ethical, although all those things I think are present in the
Yeah.
Sermon on the Mount. I think it's an ethos for life, and life today. So yeah, really excited for these ancient words to carry incredible weight and meaning for us as a group.
Um, Remo teed it off really nicely there. So I don't think I want to add to that. I think we can start taking a look.
Mm.
If you've never read the Sermon on the Mount before, that's okay. Matthew chapter 5 to Matthew chapter 7. I don't know how much we're gonna get done over the next couple of months. Don't, I'm definitely not doing all of it today. So if that was the thing that you were looking forward to, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, fair,
But
fair enough. Can I ask you to situate us? So how do we land up with the Sermon on the Mount? Why only Matthew? Before we dive into kind of the,
um,
the actual text.
that's cool. So obviously, and it actually isn't only in Matthew. There are other chapters where they put the teachings together. I think Matthew, the way he's collected it, is why it's all there. This is stuff that Jesus teaches across the Gospels, and it's stuff that he teaches outside of these chapters.
Hmm.
But Matthew is trying to tell us a story of Jesus being like the Redeemer of Israel and like the fulfillment of the Old Testament. And so obviously the first few chapters, he's trying to compare Jesus to Moses and like how Jesus is a new and greater Moses
Hmm.
and how he the things that Moses in the Torah was trying to live out and teach to the people, Jesus is now coming to fulfill. Um,
Okay.
and so then the Sermon on the Mount, I say it starts in Matthew 5, but it actually starts in Matthew chapter 4. And so when Jesus is walking around on any given day, what you'll hear him teaching about, what you would hear him teaching about was the kingdom of God.
Mm.
And so that's very loaded language. I'm not gonna try and break down what the kingdom of God means in this podcast, because
Fair
that'll
enough.
take us forever. But essentially what he's trying to preach is that there's this reality of God that is breaking into earth.
Mm.
And so obviously people had very different understandings of what that was, but Jesus is trying to teach about what the reality of God looks like on earth, because the reality of God is entering earth.
Yeah.
And this is a hope that most of the people in the Bible had. It was never about escaping earth, it was always about uniting with God on the earth.
Yeah.
And so then Jesus, primarily what the Sermon on the Mount is like how what living in the kingdom, and that's this very basic, would look like, and how if the kingdom enters into a person's life, what sort of actions that person leads.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's some very challenging stuff. It's very like against human nature almost.
Mm.
Like the thing that is natural to you, most of the time, Jesus asks you to do the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you'll see that over the weeks. And I think the Sermon on the Mount actually starts, if you read it, I'll read it to you, Matthew chapter 4, because it's just important to see who is gathered around when he's speaking.
Hmm.
You'll see in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18, just above, it says Jesus calls his first disciples.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna just start reading from verse 23. It says, Jesus went through Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. And so the good news of the kingdom is what even so Matthew had like in some of the titles, it's just called Matthew teaches, Jesus teaches the good news of the kingdom. It
Sure.
only actually later became the Sermon on the Mount,
Mm. Yeah.
the collection of teachings that we now know as Sermon on the Mount. And so it was proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness among the people. News about him spread all over Syria, And people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases,
Mm.
those suffering severe pain, the demon possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Large crowds from the Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. So when Jesus, because it's really important to situate who he's speaking to.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus is preaching this Sermon on the Mount, he's surrounded by people who are demon possessed, who are sick, who are in severe pain, who are poor across those 10 regions, the
Yeah.
Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea.
Mm.
I hope that that situated us. I feel like it
Yeah.
has.
I think it's important to highlight this is not I think it's not outside of what he taught. It's actually Matthew's gospel writing. And this is that tension point again of the human side of the
Yeah,
text, where he decides in his collation of the gospel, in his proclamation about the good news about Jesus, that he's going to almost as a thesis put this together. Or I don't know if thesis is the right
yeah,
word, but as a document to say all of these pieces spread up because Luke has chunks of it together, but then very separate pieces
yeah,
as well. John's similar idea, Mark especially, and so, but it's
yeah.
this idea that in his pursuit to write to a particular group of people, I think it's just important to underline that Matthew puts these together, but they're not. I always say to people, whether he taught them all at once or as individual teachings, he taught them. That was
Yeah.
clear. We get that from the texts that he did definitely taught these, and so it's worth noting that Matthew puts them together specifically, and I think that will shine through as we keep unpacking the different sections.
What's happening? Yeah, I think that's important as well. There is a school of thought that says no, like he went up onto the mount and started preaching.
Sure.
Um, I think if you've watched like The Chosen, it depicts it that way.
Yes.
Um, but I don't, to be honest, I actually don't think it devalues or takes away any value, whichever way you think about it.
Mm,
Like it's not the end of the world if you think he went up on the mountain and preached this whole thing. Like that's fine.
yeah.
Personally, I don't think so. I think it is a collection of teachings, which is
Ooh, interesting.
also
I
fine.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think it's one sermon. I've always thought like Matthew, because of what he's trying to do, he collects
mm,
it and he puts it together. But I think Matthew's making a point about the crowd. And so, and I think that's why when Jesus saw the crowd, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. I think
mm.
that probably happened more than once.
Yeah.
So that um
Yeah,
his
that
disciples come to him. And obviously, even the way Matthew sets it up, we his disciples come to him, we think 12 people, but Jesus hasn't set up all the 12 disciples in Matthew at this point yet.
yeah.
That only happens much later in like chapter 10, I think it is, or even just before.
Ooh, I can't remember off the top of my head.
You're not sure.
Yeah, I don't want to
But
lie.
yeah,
But
I'm actually not sure. But at this point, the 12 don't exist. His
mm,
disciples are like the people we read in chapter 4, the guys who are like really messed up, the
sure.
possessed severe ill people, which I think Matthew, even just in that, is making a point about who is actually worthy of following Jesus. Because you
Yeah.
think you have to have it all together, but
Yeah.
clearly it's just about he's
Yeah.
there, so follow.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and so
find,
then,
sorry, I find that to
yeah,
be a
go ahead.
key theme in the book of Matthew. He seems to be
Yeah,
consistently jabbing and poking and prodding and showing the audience, so that
yeah,
those who would come after reading this would be clear who it was that was in that crowd. And I think, in my estimation, it's because he recognizes our relation to them.
yeah,
Whereas John is trying to really deify God or Jesus as God, I guess, to deify him. I think Matthew's really trying to say you are the people, and he is the king for you. The very people who will relate to this text. So I think it's important I just thought to underline that again, that I
yeah.
think is a very important part of the text.
And I think it is. I think if you think if it's Matthew, like the disciple who wrote this, you'll see even in his own calling and his own story, like
Mm,
the type of position that he held in society and what it meant for him to follow Jesus and decisions that he had to make. And so I think that's all important. And I think that's why the Sermon on the Mount starts with the Beatitudes. And so I'll look at the first three, and it goes, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted, and blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Um, and so I think all of those go together. I think we hear poor in spirit, and I think we even said this on this podcast before, and I think a lot of people are doing like a great job of de-spiritualizing that for us. But I
Sure.
think that we think that poor in spirit means that you're just like, what's the word we love to use? Contrite. Um, you're like humble in heart, you're like defeated in spirit. But I think if you read the chapter before, which is why I started us there, like who is he talking to?
Mm,
Like he's talking to demon possessed, suffering from severe pain, it says.
sure.
Poor, like the lowest of the low in society. And I think it's a very like Western thing to try and separate body and spirit. If you
Mm,
are poor in spirit in the Bible, you're also poor physically.
yeah.
Like you are, because of your condition in this world where you're defeated, they're oppressed by Romans. Like nobody listens to them. Nobody of their own people, like the Jewish leaders don't listen to them. The Roman leaders don't listen to them. They don't have like anywhere to go. They are poor in spirit. And Jesus says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Mm,
So he starts where he says that the reality of God breaking into the world will first start with you. And even that word blessed, I think we think about like material possessions or like being favored by God. And there are some situations where like it's part of it, but to be blessed, I think it means that God is just extending his presence to you.
mm,
And the word used here, I think it means like Baruch. And so what's happening is that it's like it would be me looking at Remo and seeing how blessed he is. And so Jesus is trying to point out to the people in the crowd, hey, if you look at that poor person in spirit, he's blessed, which is insane way to start a sermon. Because
yeah.
like what in God is like extending his presence to you. But that's what Jesus is saying. That wherever you
Yeah.
see a person who's like defeated, broken down, severe pain, God has extended his presence to him. And I don't think Jesus is like being naive. I think it's just again, it's the point that Matthew is making that not only are the lowest in society worthy of following God, but that is actually where the kingdom of heaven starts.
Boom. Yeah.
Uh,
And I think
yeah, go
that,
ahead.
yeah, I think um the first time I heard that rendition, or not rendition, but the definition of blessed, that wasn't kind of this positive for you, nice,
Yeah,
kind of way of teaching that word. But even your definition of God extending his presence to you, that's a beautiful way to put it. That I think the the journey of the Christian today, that is the
yeah,
pursuit, right? If we're honest, that
yeah,
honestly we're not too concerned now. We want the other stuff, the house and the car and the kids and the,
yeah,
what have you. But if we're honest, most of us, certainly I do, I just want to feel that God is with me. Just I
yeah,
just want to know that to be true, because then everything else is kind of sorted, right? And not even kind of sorted. Then everything else comes into view and is sorted. And so I think it's beautiful because the word would have enticed people,
yeah.
that the very first word is blessed, and they're thinking, okay, how do we get God's extended favor? And then it's like those who are this way. I feel like that's um I continue to think Jesus was funny, and I think he
It's,
had some comedic streaks in him that allowed him to kind of see what I did there kind of situation.
yeah.
But I think it's a beautiful invitation.
And it's good you said something really important there. It's like they would have immediately started thinking, how do I get God's favor? And so I think that's why we spiritualized it. It became about how do I become poor in spirit? But it's not
Yes.
something you become. Sometimes things just happen in your life,
Yeah.
and then boom, you're at your bottom, yeah, lowest of the low. And you don't feel blessed in that moment. Because I think I don't want to take away from who Jesus is speaking to. Like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
a crowd that was suffering and they were lowest of the lows in society and not important. But I think there are moments in our own lives where we are defeated.
Mm,
And we tend to not think of ourselves as blessed in those moments.
mm.
But what Jesus is saying is that those are the moments that God meets you.
Yeah,
And I think we spoke about how it's so like counterintuitive to human nature. Because when
exactly.
everything is going wrong in my life, I'm thinking, okay, God is trying to make a point here.
Exactly.
But actually, Jesus is saying, no, God meets you there
Yeah.
first,
Mm,
not like when everything else has failed. Okay, God, he says, even there, God is still there, like he said.
yeah.
Like you are still within the presence of God.
Yeah. And that's why it's good news. The
Yeah,
breaking in, the coming of this kingdom into earth right now, right? And the prayer, we'll get to the prayer later. Um,
yeah,
but that breaking in of his rule and reign is good news because you you're broken. You're broken in
yeah,
spirit or you're poor in spirit, and God is there.
yeah,
Which again, I think from what I've read of some of the Old Testament texts and then commentaries of their time, that was that wasn't their thinking either. They often also
yeah.
thought, like we do, that the punishments are God's um, what's the correct word? Uh, Detachment from us. It's his
Hmm.
distancing from us. And I think often the prophets are saying, um, no, actually, he's working. That's the goal.
Yeah,
He actually needs this to shape and form you. And so almost I think Jesus is hopping onto that and saying, it's good news, guys, because you are the
yeah.
broken and God is near. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. And then the other two beatitudes are connected to it.
Mm.
And so it goes, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted, and then blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And I think you see the other two beatitudes become a problem if we make the first one overly spiritual, because then we think about like spiritual mourning and spiritual meekness. And that's not to
Ooh,
say the spiritual part is not important, but mourning is very real circumstances.
sure.
Jesus is talking to the people whose lives are probably characterized by mourning.
Yeah.
Again, they've been poor. They've
Yeah.
probably lost a lot. Their lives have gone wrong. Again, to be demon possessed, that's like genuine affliction
Yeah.
and oppression. To be in severe pain, right? Nobody listens to them, and so they've lost a lot. And when you lose, you have to mourn, you have to grieve. But to be in a state of constant mourning and constant grieving
Mm.
is what these people are.
Sure.
And Jesus is saying, for they will be comforted. And that
Yeah.
they haven't been comforted at any point in their lives. But he's saying when the kingdom of heaven comes through, these people will be comforted. And again, I don't want to, because he's trying to address things that are happening now, he was already healing people in the chapter just before. And so, like, it's something like he will comfort them now, but then there will be this place of ultimate comfort going into the future. And
Mm.
I think about like Jesus wasn't able to heal and save everyone with his limited time on earth. I mean, he dies and like that redeems us, but he wasn't able to heal every sick person,
Sure.
to clothe every poor person. Like Jesus was there and people still died. And there were
Yeah.
things that Jesus dies. I think that that part of his death, like it's a sad thing that Jesus had to die.
Mm.
And like in that reality is like when you think about it, it's just another Jewish person taken out by the Roman oppression,
Yeah.
what it looks like at face value. But Jesus is talking about a mourning that is like a comforting that is coming, where
Yeah.
you're free from the state of mourning and grieving forever.
Mm.
And yes, comfort is possible now, but it will be like an ever present state
Sure.
where there will be no mourning anymore, as Revelation puts it.
Yeah.
Um, And then he takes us into that last one, blessed are the meek. And again, meek has become an interesting, it's just an interesting English word. I
Mm.
don't even know when last you used the word meek in your day-to-day vocabulary. It's just
Mm.
something we don't really use. And so we think meek, we think humble. I think a better word there is unimportant, again, because of who he's talking to.
Interesting.
The the lowest of the low in society. And meek, because I know in the Old Testament, Moses describes himself as meek.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an important person, but he obviously thought of himself as unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one way. And then there's another one. These guys are actually unimportant. Like nobody,
Mm.
they don't have a say in how their society runs.
Sure.
Nobody cares what happens to them. people probably don't know their names. They
Yeah.
are just disposable. There are people like that in our society today. And then Jesus says, for they will inherit the earth.
Mm.
Again, you connect it to the first one where in God's reality where like the structures of power are flipped, with like the first become last and the last become first. The unimportant people, the ones that you ignore, they will inherit the earth. And I think again, that's important for us to think about today. I think because there are people in maybe even you in your own life, nobody really cares like what you have to say or what you think or how things affect you.
Sure.
Um, and you've come to think like that that's it for yourself.
Mm.
But Jesus is saying that the people who are unimportant are blessed, as in God has extended his presence to you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, well, I think it's such an interesting starting point for a sermon, first of all.
Yeah.
And so I see why many think it can't be just one. This can't be it. Like he couldn't have started this. This has to be
Yeah.
pieces that Matthew's putting together. But regardless of whether it's he
Yeah.
started it or not, Matthew putting them together this way, in view of who the people are in the context of the text, um, to me is quite profound because
Yeah.
I think even today the Christian is tempted, and we see it. The culture war in the USA is a great picture of this.
Mhm.
That the pursuit is how can we gain the power?
Yeah.
How can we put the Ten Commandments in schools, to use a very not right now topical thing
Mhm.
for the
Mhm.
USA? Obviously many a Christian sadly thought Donald Trump is their guy, right? That he's come some kind of
Mhm.
reformed Messiah. And so the pursuit is often for the strong. It's often for the
Yeah.
high in society. It's often for the the comforted, not the mourners, not the. And I think there's this for me incredible way that this text begins the sermon to say, let's turn everything on its head.
Mm.
Let's turn your understandings on its head because you've already mentioned it, but this is almost introductory to say, and the rest of it is going to continue the same way. Like
Yeah.
when it gets really practical about walking further, about turning
Yeah.
cheeks, all of that stuff. Yeah, remember where we started is we're starting with
Yeah.
a particular type of people, and I think I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but I think the beauty of what is happening, and I think what Matthew is doing is he's highlighting this to say, hey, this is where it begins. It's a clear
Yeah.
understanding of where it is that God's presence arrives and to whom it arrives to, and what that arrival means. For those who are
Yeah.
mourning, it means comfort. For those who are
Yeah.
lowly, it means inheritance. All of this really turned around way of perceiving it. And I think uh, what's kind of sticking out to me is on one hand, it's the present promise and the right now, and of course the future promise. Both and are true at the same time. And I think there can be
Yeah.
a great statement of faith there for the believer to
Yeah.
say, I'm blessed. And I
Yeah.
almost, name it and claim it for lack of a better term. But I'm blessed right now, though things look X, Y, and Z way. And I think that is, if I think about the heart of God as I perceive him through the text, that is like God 101 right there.
Yeah. And I think it's really important because we won't have time to go through all the beatitudes, but I really do want to. You've highlighted some really important stuff there. I think because there are nine blessings and you should read them, and I think you should read them with the crowd in mind and see what Jesus is doing,
Mhm,
and try and see what Jesus is doing and what you come away with for yourself. But I think because, like we said, we want this sermon to speak to us today.
mhm,
And I think that this is actually like a really good start because you spoke about the state of the world
mhm.
and like how easy it is to watch as like the powerful just get more powerful and the rich just get more richer, and it's just at the expense of the weak people in society.
Yeah,
And it can be really tempting to just get into that game
yeah.
and to try and gain like power and riches and inheritance for yourself and to gain more in importance and more in society. And there might be some of you who are listening who can do like nothing about the structures of the world.
Mhm,
Like right now you don't have enough money, you're probably sick, you're probably in pain, your body doesn't work, it's not doing the things that it needs to do, and you feel like unworthy. But Jesus starts by speaking against that.
Yeah.
And Matthew highlights that Jesus, where it starts with Jesus, is with you.
Mm.
Like though you're low physically, emotionally, in society, you're wondering what you have to offer. Jesus is saying it's not about what you have to offer. From where you are in that moment, you are already blessed.
Mm.
And I think that's the power of the Beatitudes. Like where you are today, that place God has blessed.
Yeah.
And obviously, there might be some challenging things that you need to do and confront and reckon with in your own life. But that doesn't take away from the fact that God has blessed you.
Mm.
Um, yeah, before I start like preaching, I think that's
Beautiful. We have arrived at our destination, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope today's conversation has helped you thrive in
yeah.
life as well as in your faith. Thanks.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on your chosen podcast platform as this continues to help the community grow. With a new episode dropping every few weeks, stay tuned for future insights and discussions that prayerfully continue to help you back yourself, trust God, and thrive in life and faith.